Okay, good morning, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay in starting due to technical issues. So I declare the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting SPC 23/7 open and welcome everyone here, and that we've got some from the media here as well this morning. Welcome. I shall start with a karakia. Whakatau mai te wairua, whakawātea mai te hinanaru, whakarite mai te tinana, ki ea ai ngā mahi. Ai. Please note that this meeting is live streamed and the consequences of that. I note that Councillor Henry is not here, so I'll call for an apology for the leave of absence for Councillor Henry, Councillor Granger, Councillor Crawford. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. I'm not aware of any late items. Does anyone have a declaration of interest they would like to make? No? Okay. There are no public excluded items. I'm not aware of anyone for public forum. No presentations, so we move on to the reports on page 7, which is the adoption of the draft waste management and minimisation plan for consultation. So I welcome up Charlotte and Matt to take us through this, please.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to take the report as read, but I will just provide a quick summary to the background of the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. So it is a requirement that Council has a WMMP and that it must be reviewed every 6 years. It is a key component to receiving funding from the Waste Levy, authorised by central government. In terms of drafting the plan, this has taken into account early pre-engagement feedback from our community. We had a waste assessment completed last year that outlined some key issues, and we also know that we need to align our plan with the New Zealand Waste Strategy. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Charlotte. I shall ask a question straight up. So page 9, when we talk about the interested and affected parties we're consulting with, it talks about neighbouring councils. Are we going wider than immediately neighbouring councils? So such as the councils of the Bay of Plenty region, or are you very limited on that?
So Western Bay is part of a Central North Island waste group, which is much further than just our immediate neighbouring councils. It goes down to, I think, Ruapehu and Taranaki. Yeah, so it is much wider, and it is a lot of similar sized councils as well.
It includes the Eastern Bay, for example?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, just a question in regard to the subsidies that we receive. Is any of that used to subsidise the cost of the effectively the tag that people pay for the landfill?
So the subsidy is for waste minimisation. So to my knowledge, it's not going towards the PAYT tag.
I don't believe that we can use it for operational activities such as that. That's not the purpose of the levy, and we can't use it for that purpose.
So that would indicate that the $3.95 or whatever for the tag covers the cost, all the costs associated with picking up and disposing of that rubbish?
I believe so, but I think that's something that we can talk to further, but yes.
Okay. Councillor Murray Benge.
We've come a long way with our rubbish waste disposal process, and always it causes a bit of conflict as we go through the change. But tell me, have you had any notice with Tauranga City Council? They own a worm farm in Kawerau. Do they send their food scraps to there?
Maybe I'll pass over to Tony, who knows more around it, but I don't believe Tauranga own the worm farm. I'll pass over to Tony to give you some more operational side of details.
Should we let Tony answer the question rather than speculate amongst ourselves?
So I believe the worm farm in Kawerau is not owned by TCC. They're solid, but they're solid waste or from the wastewater treatment plants is sent down there. But their food waste is sent to EnviroWaste up in Hampton Downs, which is where ours go.
Thank you. Councillor Coxhead.
I've just got a couple of questions, so I'll give them all to you up front. I noticed that management of nappy waste is an issue, and I wondered what the potential solution was to that, because in my day it wasn't an issue because we didn't have disposables. That's showing how old I am. There's also disposal of our bitumen for roading. It's not mentioned in here, but Tony and I've both been at a site where there was quite a big pile of it left on the side of the road, and I just wondered how that's disposed of. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, I still think that we need larger glass recycling bins on wheels and maybe less frequent collection if they're a larger bin like they have in Timaru Council.
So in terms of the bitumen, so that's counted as construction and demolition waste, so we can, I guess, stress that more in the final document, but it is covered in quite a few actions. We have tried to make construction and demolition waste a key component of this because we do know it is one of the key issues across the district. In terms of nappies, we do run education programs and there have been recent success with other councils around cloth nappy education, and we have Kate Meads who does, I guess, environmental parenting, waste-free parenting workshops that we subsidise. And sorry, what was your third question? Glass?
Is there new larger bins for glass? Which may be more of an operational issue, but perhaps you can comment if you...
Yeah, and we do have actions in the WMP. So a lot of this will be investigating what we can do next, and that will be part of it in terms of what are the next steps to address those community concerns. So it is that high-level overview of providing the plan of what we're doing next.
If you do need an extra glass waste bin, I believe that you can request for one from Tony. And there's just an additional charge for that.
And of course, you can still go to recycling centres. Okay, with any further questions on the waste management and minimisation plan? No? Okay, so we have 4 recommendations there, essentially to adopt for public consultation. Councillor Mo Benji, moving? Okay, who would like to second that? Councillor Crawford. Okay, any debate? No? Okay.
Just I'll repeat, sir, I think that this council has done a very good job in sorting out our waste to this stage. And even with the providing the big skip bins in the rural areas has been well received. And we know that people mercilessly dump stuff, which is really quite horrible, and particularly in the rural area. And so I think what we're doing is we're definitely on the right track, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. Whoever's doing it, thank you very much.
Councillor Crawford.
And also just around the recycling, repurposing strategies too. So hopefully that's progressing within this too. So something we're anticipating. I was just talking to a lady this morning in Te Puke who's involved along with Tapuika to work towards that plan. So I don't know. I'll just ask a question about how that's progressing.
So Ilza, who is unable to be here today, will have more information, but we are working with both Katikati and Te Puke to progress it. And then I guess in terms of the plan, we've got 2 actions that commit us to ensuring that that happens. But I do understand that everything is underway. It might look different at different ends of the district, but we're just working with the Tangata Whenua and community groups to see what works best.
Okay, so with that, we'll put this motion, and I'm sure there'll be further debate when it comes back for adoption later. But I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. So now we move on to item 10.2, page 150, which is the Katikati and Omokura dog exercise areas. Jason.
Shows how many of these meetings I've attended. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Take the report named Katikati no Mokoro dog exercise areas as being read. And I'd also like to just give a brief summary reminder of the contents of the key points of this report. So this was through the long-term plan 2021-2031. Council committed to the provision of dog exercise areas, just with some basic facilities. And through that, the consultation process the community identified areas of Donegal Reserve, Katikati, and Slingsview Drive Reserve, Mokoro, as the preferred locations. Through Tōwahi consultation, just recently in May, June this year, we consulted on feedback on those locations, and the findings came back to tell us that the preferred locations of Donegal Reserve and Slingsview Drive Reserve was still the popular choice for the community. We used their feedback to develop concept plans, which were then tweaked and improved to make sure that all of that input was represented in those plans. And the resolutions for today, or recommendations for today, looking to adopt Donegal Reserve Katikati and investigate Precious Family Reserve as an alternate location alongside Slingsview Drive Reserve in Mokoro. And I'm happy to take any questions.
So I'm just going to clarify a question I had, but choosing to consult on Precious Family Reserve does not rule out Slingsview Drive Reserve.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Joyce.
A couple of questions. One is I'm struggling to see why this strategy and policy matter, considering it's been in the long-term plan. It's either a projects matter or a long-term plan matter, but I don't quite see why it's a strategy of the council. More importantly, we're still using the old costings in here, yet we've been told there are updated costings that are a lot higher. So how can we consult on costings that we know are no longer current? So those are my two questions.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit further? Can you explain what
Which part?
the,
Well,
the different costings that you...
Well, you presented to us at a workshop some costings, right? That were very, very different to the 30,000. So, well, you did. It was, I mean, I was trying not to go into the confidential stuff, but there were some costings given to us that were in there.
So those basic costings that the council have committed to, that's to I guess, establish the dog exercise area, and we made it clear through that process, or the workshop process, that the looking at additional items or trying to cover additional costs would be consulted through the local community boards, and also looking at sourcing external funders and other ways of reducing costs through for example, constructing the seats through the men's shed.
Right. So you're confident we can still do these for $30,000 each?
$30,000 represents council's investment into the project, similar to Bookie one. 30,000 was how much council put in, community boards put in, external funders put in. We were able to actually deliver a product that was of significant higher value for the same amount of money that we put in. So it's maximising those relationships and that external money that might be available. So tech put in a significant amount of money.
So those points will be covered in the consultation? Because that's important, right?
Well, we're
consulting
consulting on the location. The money is in the long-term plan, and so we're just checking in that the locations are the right ones.
So just for clarity, we've had consultation. We did that in May, June. What's been presented to you now is the concept plans for adoption. So you're being asked to adopt the Katikati concept plan for implementation, and that'll be done through the 2023-24 year, so probably next year, 2024. What we're talking about for Mokoroa is that We heard that a lot of people thought Linksview worked, but there was a lot of people that said, well, have you thought about Precious? So we're making sure that we're going out to the community saying, oh, would this work better? Asking questions around that, so that then it comes back to you having more informed choice around what would work and what the community wants in a Makaroa. That's what is being presented at the moment. The budgets are currently in the current annual plan at 30,000 per part.
Yeah. And in response to your other question, it's coming to the strategy and policy because we're adopting a concept plan. It's not a budgetary issue, and the project hasn't started yet, so it's not projects and monitoring. So I've got a number of speakers. Councillor Thwaites first, please.
You're following on from Councillor Joyce's point. I just want to know how long a payback will it take to pay back, firstly, the 24,000 dog fees in Te Puke, and then the subsequent 2 lots of 24,000 that are going to come out of the dog fees. How long a payback is it going to occur over?
I don't have those figures, but I'll consult the head of our animal control to be able to get those figures.
Okay. Councillor Soul on Zoom.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm actually a little concerned too that we still have in this document a figure of $30,000. And back in the Stratum policy meeting on the 7th of March, and I quote, where they said $30,000, however, costs have increased since this was adopted. Now that's back in March, it's quite some time back. I just am very concerned about where this is going. I also still query how, when council staff decided that it was not a suitable place for this dog exercise area to be, for various reasons, it is now acceptable. And just in looking back through the feedback and answers there, which was very high, and I'm quite happy to see that people are keen to have that spot, but there's a picture there showing that it's extremely wet. I still am very concerned about adopting this as being good money being spent on something that perhaps is not such a good idea in that spot. So I do have some issues about this, sir, and I just ask again, what then are the perceived costs at this stage for us to even consider starting going down into the next phases of it? Public need to know.
Rachel, you want to respond?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to Councillor Soul, perhaps just to reiterate the points that have been made by both Matt and Jason. So the council funding commitment is clear. Appreciate that it's not sufficient in and of itself to fund a dog exercise area that our communities would expect, and we saw that transpire at Te Puke. But equally, they are the types of projects that communities love to get behind, and so too do our philanthropic funders ordinarily. So we, again, to be clear, the funding that has been provided in the long-term plan is the extent of the funding that council anticipates making to all of these dog exercise areas, and expects the balance to be funded from other sources, including the option of community boards making a decision as to whether or not they might like to contribute some funding as well.
Okay, we've got next.
I do have a supplementary to that, if I may, briefly.
Okay, go on.
We also don't have any idea of the implications as far as ongoing cost servicing of this on an annual basis or whatever. I just feel that needs to be asked as well.
It's on page 158 of the agenda.
Yeah, it's in the agenda, Alan. Right, moving on to Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Sorry, I was just going to clarify in regard to the costings and council's contributions, and Rachel's explained that very clearly. So,
thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the procedure for us in Te Puke. obviously we're the first one that's got a dog park. So how it worked out for us as a community board and also through the Te Ara Kakatea Pathway Group came up with the idea about having a dog park, and Lawrence Oliver Park was chosen. And so in that, council made a commitment of $30,000 as their contribution. Community board made a contribution, and then the rest were able to get through other funding. So it was community driven. The council backed it up by that. And my understanding when this came in is that it was going to be across, you know, if one side district gets that, the other gets it. Whether there should be an increase or not, I'm not sure, you know, seeing that things got more expensive, whether the council should contribute more. The other thing in regards to what Alan was talking about, that particular park, about the fears of flooding, I mean, obviously Lawrence Oliver Park didn't have much use for anything but grazing. And so by us putting a dog park there, we have put it in an area that does get some flooding, but the way that the council, you know, the people who've designed it and done it has helped to mitigate that a lot. Knowing that that will, I was recently there after a lot of that rain we had, and there was a little bit of like wetness and muddiness in the middle part, but the track and everything was pretty well intact. So, so they've done a really good job of helping, you know, putting drainage, raising up a little bit the walking track and stuff like that. So, Alan, you know, it can be, though there was a perception by people in the community about why you're putting it there, you know, there's a flooding area. But I can, you know, tell you that, you know, it has worked and our situation has made a better use of that bit of land.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Murray-Benj.
The best dog exercise park I've ever known is Huarua Park, where you can take your dog off the lead and then choke and hope that it doesn't attack anything. And socialising your dog is really quite a wonderful place to be. And you have to put the lead on to go down to a confined area. I'll be interested to know what Precious Reserve results come out at, because I'm using Huarua Park as an example where you can walk a great distance with your dog or without, with on or off the lead, and it's a safe environment for everyone, and dogs socialise and learn, and I just love that place. And if you want to go further, you have to put the dog on the lead, and I think people abide by that. And so there's an alternative to a specific dog exercise area, in my view. I'll be interested to hear what the community board has to say.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Granger.
Thank you, sir. Well, firstly, I'm heartened to hear that at the moment we're listening to the people in the Mokoroa and put a hold on Linksview. Whatever happened about the idea of the stormwater area behind 336 Mokoroa Road? Why was that not brought forward?
Yeah, we had a good look at that, and it was, I guess, the proximity to those, the adjacent property owners, the actual size and shape as well, and the overall location in terms of natural cycle walkway connections didn't, I guess it didn't really tick all of the boxes through what we seemed fit for purpose for that dog exercise area. It was certainly a good location to look at. And once we went through our actual investigations through the other locations, that's when they, the likes of Precious Reserve, became more of a feature there. So a bit more viable.
Councillor Joyce.
Just one more question. Twice we've had people mention that community boards will be invited to partake in this. What consultation, please, has been carried out with community boards? Because if we're going out to the public and we don't have the money, and we're looking to community boards to help fill that gap, then perhaps we should go to the community boards first. You know, so what actions have we taken if we're expecting community boards to front up for some of it? Have we gone to them, please?
This was a key plank of the last LTP, and this has gone through so much consultation.
But not the part about funding from the community boards, hasn't it?
Conversations with the community boards through the Tūwahi engagement and the wider things happened, and they were aware of that engagement, and they were aware of this specific piece when we went out and spoke to them and said, look, this is what we're looking at.
We asked them if they could fund it. Because we're short of money, right? So it's a serious question.
Not explicitly that I know of. However, they may wish to get on board or they may not. It just changes what's delivered on at the time and how much.
Councillor Coxhead, did you raise a hand?
I do like the idea of dog parks in theory, and I do like the fact that, as Margaret pointed out, it's a good place for dogs to be socialised. I guess I would question how many bells and whistles need to go with it. The ones I've seen in the past probably aren't as well planned as this councillor preparing to do. But literally they've been a fenced off area for people to run their dogs. There haven't been dog poop bags. There might have been a tap. They are fenced off and that's about it. I know that sounds a little bit basic, but potentially if we needed to cut costs, are there other areas or avenues that we could look at to do that?
Yes, we looked at that and took on the feedback from our previous workshop about how can we reduce the cost or change the design to reduce those costs overall. And some of those basic things are the removal of the majority of paths. Naturally, you still need some sort of access, particularly with wheelchair and pram access. Well, potentially pram access, depending on how game the parents are. But some form of access, and certainly the gates need to be there. But in terms of the actual design from the starting point, it's as basic as we need just to make sure that it happens. And that's when, if you want additional features, then that'll be up to consultation with the community.
Yeah,
or external funders.
I'd also like to say that the level of service, if you like, for dog park was absolutely part of the consultation. I think we had, do you want a low, medium, or high spec, and we certainly didn't go with the high spec version. So that has been well talked about with the community. And if I recall correctly, dog poo bags about the number one thing that people wanted. So that would absolutely be part of it.
And yet we all, as dog owners, have to carry them on us. They're like in our handbag at all times.
Okay, I'm conscious we might be going around in circles a bit here, but I'm going to go with Councillor Granger.
I have another suggestion then. Has any thought been given to the reserve that will be soon available at the end of Mangawhai Place?
Sorry, can you just name that reserve one more time? I didn't quite get it.
I don't know, it's got a name yet. It's at the moment you can't get to it because of a building site, but it's council-owned land. It's Mangawhai Place.
No, not to my knowledge. I certainly haven't seen it come up.
It has walkway on three sides of it, bush on three sides of it. So it's...
Okay, with that, I think we'll look for a mover and seconder for the recommendations, 1 to 5. Do I have a mover and seconder for those, please? Councillor Crawford, Councillor Daly. In debate. Councillor Joyce.
I love dog parks. I mean, at one stage, I had a little dog about that big, 4.5 kilos, mostly hair, and we made good use of a dog park that was near our house. The only problem I had really was my little dog thought it was a big dog, so it wouldn't hang out in the little dog area, it would only hang out in the big dog area. So I do not oppose these. What I'm not comfortable with is the idea of going to the public with a plan. You know, thank you for your revisions and thank you for all the work you've done on it. I think it's great, but we actually don't have a costing for this plan. You know, we were given previous costings and we've been told things have been taken out, but we don't actually have a costing for this plan as it is now. We've been told our $30,000 that we've committed is not enough, but we have no idea where we're getting the rest from. We haven't even talked to the community boards, which have a statutory oversight of council matters in their area. And I still can't understand why there's a strategy matter rather than something, you know, more prosaic. So, you know, we're not putting more money in. We seem to have settled that today, or, you know, we haven't really, but it's been talked about. We know we haven't got enough. We've revised the plan since we last saw costings. This is not ready to go out to the public yet. It needs work. It needs work on the financial side. We need to be able to go to the public and say, this is our idea, and this is what we'd like to do. We've only got this much money. You know, if we do this, we're going to need more. That's what we should be going out to the public with. Omokarai is obviously still in flux a bit, and Murray's obviously got some great ideas about some other options. which need to be looked at, but I don't think we're ready to go to public consultation yet. We don't actually know where the money's coming from. We're not even we're trying to pass this without ourselves knowing how much we're short. How does that work? I just don't understand it, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to speak to this. I think there's a bit of confusion here about where we are in the process. This is to adopt the concept plan. We've gone through an extensive consultation programme previously, to have dog parks at each of our main centres throughout the district. We've built one, and that was an amazing success. I had the pleasure of opening that one. We were to adopt both these concept plans, but after further thought and good suggestion from Councillor Granger, I think it was, to have a think about another option for Mokoro, we'll go out and consult with that. I'm totally happy with that, because there was a bit of community dissent about where the location should be. But having decided, or having heard that the community wants dog parks, we went out for consultation on the location for Kati Kati. 81% are in favour of that location, so they're keen with that. We've sorted the cost through the long-term plan. There are issues around seeking further funding, but we can't sort of go out and you can't ask TECT up front, how much you're going to give. That's not how the process tends to work. So look, I think this is a commitment we've made. It's small change really in the scheme of things. A few tens of thousands of dollars. It's really not a lot of money, and there's a lot of expectation now about dog parks. I think to build one in Te Puke and then sort of give up is just ridiculous, frankly. So look, I'm wholly in favour of this, and we'll be voting in favour, and look forward to hearing the results of the Amokura feedback. So that's me. Is there any other speakers? Councillor Wickers.
Maybe a different way of looking at this is, rather than this is what the council wants to do, this is actually what community-led development looks like. So it's the community saying this is what we want, and council saying is this is what we will contribute. And for it to progress, if it is truly community-led, it's up to them to fill the gap.
Okay, Councillor Granger.
Yes, maybe a bit late and out of order, but I wonder if we can change 5 to allow for other areas rather than just Precious Reserve and Linksview.
So I think worth acknowledging first off that a whole list of areas in Amokura have been considered. So I suggest not opening it out completely, but are you suggesting that, was it Mangawhai Place being included as well?
Well, it is another big reserve area that is currently unused. It's just green space because we can't get to it because of the building site at the moment. But they'll be finished building soon. So access will be available to it. And if it hasn't been thought of or considered yet, it's another possibility.
I'm just looking at staff here just on the practicalities of that. I mean, if we were to do that, I think there'd be 2 stages. There'd be a look at the sort of basic checklist of is it viable, and then there's a community aspect. But Rachel, I think, wants to come in there.
Yes, so we've clearly got someone else. Peter, one of my colleagues, is actually viewing, I think, online. He has just sent me a message to say that Mangawhai Power site was considered but discounted under the criteria relating to cultural heritage issues.
Okay. Did you want to speak further to your correct? No. Okay. I've got Councillor Murray Benj.
I support the concept plan going out for decisions and further consultation, but sir, it could actually have the amount of funding that we have got available, and it may require extra support. And I think if we acknowledge that in the introduction, I think we would cover ourselves for the public would understand. They could actually carry their own bags for the doggy who actually, which most of us did.
Okay, Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. And the first thing I've got to say is my apologies, and I had made a note that were there, and I just quickly didn't notice it, and I thought, whoa, where's the costs? So my apologies. As a person that's owned many and dozens of dogs, totally in agreement of exercise areas and so on for them. My question is whether the site is suitable for expenditure like that. Otherwise, I totally accept then that we are considering this as a concept plan and that there would need to be further consultation as to further development of a park. That's how I understand you're saying, as to where it's being funded, how, what and so on would come into it, but what council's liability would be with it. So if that's the case, sir, I'm comfy enough to roll with it, with, as I say, my own reservations about still how suitable the site is. But we need areas where people can exercise their dogs. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Councillor Sol, my understanding is that if we adopt, certainly for Katikati, construction will start next year and that will be it.
With what money?
With the money that we have and will be applied for. Is that correct?
Yep, I think you're both correct. Both correct in this, that this is a concept plan. It's what good looks like and what we want to achieve. We've got the money that we've got, but then we're talking to the community board, talking to external funders, not consultation, but talking and conversations with those people to secure additional funding to deliver it up to this level. But we've got the base amount the council will put into it, and that's the base that will be delivered, the very simple, basic things.
I think I would like to just remind councillors, particularly new ones, that we have had situations where concept plans are adopted and through lack of funding, they sit there for many years and don't get built. And it's not a situation I want, and certainly not in this situation. I'm sure we can scratch together, a few tens of thousands, but it doesn't, the funding issue is totally separate from the concept plan issue. Councillor Mobend, you've already spoken, so.
Can I ask a question?
We're trying
Of Ms.
to kind
Davies?
of get past that, but go on then.
Yes. Rachel, at Hururu Park, there's a protected area which has real Maori significance. You certainly can't take your dog in there. Is the reserve, that area that Murray is referring to, could that be treated in the same way? Is it big enough for that or totally inappropriate?
Yes, it is a PAR site, and it is a PAR site of incredible cultural significance, equal to Ongarahu PAR, which is the one at Huharua Park for the mana whenua of Pirirako. My suggestion would be, and I suspect it has already been done, that there would be close engagement with Pirirako first before anything entered the public domain. I suspect it's for those reasons that the option was discounted in the first place. It is an incredibly important PAR site.
Okay. Councillor Daly.
Yeah, I've seconded these recommendations and fully supportive of progressing these initiatives, despite the reserves from some of the councils about where the money is going to come from. I began the journey with dog parks in Te Puke in 2018 when a little old lady came to the community board and asked for the board to consider establishing one in the location that it's ended up in. And then there was a long process which it came from the community board to council strategy and policy or long-term plan, and a whole lot of consideration was given through quite a few agendas, and we finally got it approved in the last long-term plan. $30,000 is clearly inadequate, but at all times the community board was fully supportive. When we went out for consultation, the only thing people said was, it's not big enough, you need to make it bigger, because we did scale the concept down because the budget simply wasn't big enough once you started looking at fencing and other features. But so as a result of the consultation, we did double the size, and we're up around the same size that these concept plans are at now. So clearly the staff have learned something from that process, and also we had the application detect We got $50,000 from them, and we had a tech representative come to the opening, and so she saw firsthand the popularity of the park. That we had, I don't know if you could say hundreds of people, but in the application there was a question about how many people do you think will use this park, this dog park, and we put in 50 people a day, we thought, based on the traffic that we had around the walkway. And so 350 people a day, and they come back and questioned and said, "Oh, are you sure about these numbers?" And we had to think about it, and we said, yes, we think that's realistic. And the practice, since it's opened, I think backs up those claims. And every time you drive past there, you see people in there. And the thing that I noticed on the opening the most was that, because there was a couple of objections to when we went out for consultation from the neighbours, thinking that the dogs would be barking and noisy. But on the opening, there was no barking. The dogs do socialise well, and they play extremely hard, and really enjoy themselves, but no barking. The smallest dog, the little Dachshund, was the only one that I ever heard barking on that day. So I think they are great. I've had nothing but positive comments from the community, and the TECT indicated they were aware of the Karikari and Omokoro proposals even before our application was accepted. So staff had already been talking to them about that possibility. So I think the money from TECT should be forthcoming, and our community board, like I said, they're fully supportive, and they agreed to put in $20,000, as far back as when Richard was chairman. So despite the reservations, I think you guys will find that there's lots of goodwill and support from the community.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I now have Councillor Coxhead.
This isn't a question, it's seeking clarification. Matt, you mentioned this will be the base. Do you mean the base or the maximum that council will contribute when you said that?
The 30,000 is the maximum that council can contribute.
Okay. With no further speakers, Councillor Crawford, would you like a right of reply? You don't have to.
No, I just endorse it and just reiterate what Grant's saying. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the opening because I had COVID, but I did wander by at a distance. But it was, and since then we've seen it used. I go around that track twice a week with a cycle group and look all the time going past there, and there's always people in groups in there. So just want to say thank you to council for your 30,000 you gave towards that, and looking forward to seeing the other two dog parks come about, and I'm pretty sure they'll enjoy it too.
Thank you. So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Is that one? Okay. I declare that carried. Thank you. Right. So moving on to page 187, which is the submission on Ministry for the Environment consultation deferral of NZETS reporting obligations for animal farming activities. Okay. So given that this is a submission that has gone, I'm not expecting a lot of debate, but if you've got any questions, then Megan is here to ask them. No? Okay. In which case, I'll move recommendation 1 and 2. Can I have a seconder, please? Someone, please. Councillor Murray-Benge. Any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on, page 190. The submission to the Bay of Plenty Regional Council changes to freshwater management in the Bay of Plenty. Okay, and it's one that's already gone, but do we have anyone to answer questions on this one? Ariel, there, behind Andy's head. Are there any questions of Ariel on that one? No? Okay, I look for a mover and second, please. Councillor Granger. I'll second that. Any debate? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, page 195, item 10.5, submission on inquiry into community-led retreat and adaptation funding. I just want to make a little note here that the recommendation in one should read submission on. I think the word submission is missing from that. Councillor Coxhead.
I noticed that this letter, or sorry, the submission isn't dated. Has this already been sent?
I believe it has.
So we hadn't workshopped this? No, we had it in executive forum, we didn't workshop it.
We did, well, you provided comments and we took account of those.
Yeah, that was at executive forum.
Actually, no, we did workshop it. We did workshop it, that's right. And then you sent an email subsequently. Okay. Councillor Joyce.
So on page 200 of the agenda, there's a suggestion of a novel funding and financing solution for managed retreat. When was that workshopped with councillors, please?
Okay, so firstly, doing submissions like this is always a tricky one with timing, and that is an idea that I had, and I'd subsequently socialised it with councillors after another meeting or workshop, and the majority of councillors were there, and it was favourably received.
So just to clarify, we had a workshop. This idea did not go before the workshop, and now it's gone into a submission without going back to council.
Well, this is the difficulty we have. I mean, Councillor Cox had put an email submission in, or not submission, her views subsequently. Sometimes this happens. It's much better I agree, to have it all done in the workshop. Sometimes that's just not possible. And of course, that there are, how we combine the views in a workshop into a letter, that can't, you're not going to have two workshops on this. It's just not going to be feasible.
So this was covered in an informal discussion amongst a few councillors, but you didn't think to email it out to the whole council, for example, bearing in mind that it's something that's come out of the blue. I mean, I'm all for ideas, but there's something out of the blue. We have a thing called email. We seem loath to use it.
Well, we're not going to
socialise ideas.
We don't debate stuff by email. That's a really bad way of doing stuff. But Rachel, did you want to come in there?
I just wanted to add that it was workshopped on the 3rd of October as part of a suite of other workshop items. It is in your Stella, and I can see it there. The elected members who attended on that day, bearing in mind that there were 43 questions and there wasn't the time nor energy, respectfully, to go through all 43 questions at that time. Elected members were invited to, beyond the workshop, to share their ideas, and that is what happened with 2 of our elected members.
I don't want to turn this into a debate, but if we were sharing our ideas, perhaps the Mayor could have shared this idea as well.
Well, I did. But if you're not here, then it kind of...
I'm sorry, but I don't know. When you're having an informal thing over lunch, I don't know what you're going to discuss, because how do I know?
The question for me was whether I mentioned it at all, because this is gathering people's views from a workshop with staff, collating it into a letter, into a submission, and then how you put that together. And I felt that the idea was sufficiently different to socialise it. But that was something I did as a helpful thing, rather than as trying to have some extra workshop, which was never going to be able to happen. I'm going to go to Councillor Granger and then Councillor Murray Benge.
With respect to the discussions, it's not council policy. It's a submission that's going into government. It's probably going to get thrown into the bin anyway. So I don't know why we're spending so much time getting titchy about whether something was discussed or not.
Thank you, Councillor Granger. I can't agree. Councillor Murray Benge.
I'm titchy, and I read this and I thought, Here we are, we've had areas in low lying area around Katikati where we know that if we put a health requirement on it, close it down, government would be interested in helping. But we don't, because we work with the community, and we do need to transfer people back from where they are at the present time. And you absolutely have to have government support for that, because we can't afford to do it on our own. So in that regard, it waffles around, to be honest, sir, but it's not clean and clear enough for me, and I just think it's one of those things where we'll drift on, and unless we have, for the great majority of people, it's not an issue. And so, but for where we have problems and we need to act now, rather than in 10, 100 years' time, they'll be underwater by then. And so I feel that this doesn't go far enough. It was an opportunity to crack the government round the ears and tell them, I've got to watch my language, they've got to tell them that in fact we need support at the right time, and that is now and not 100 years hence. Just saying, sir.
Thank you for your views, Councillor Murray-Benge. I'm sure the new government will consider all the submissions carefully. Are there any other questions on this? No? Okay, I'll look for a mover and seconder, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Sol on Zoom.
Yes, sir. I just look at this one as well as being a bit of a worry. I mean, the implications and so on. I like ideas that come from out of nowhere. To be honest, they at times will often lead to a gem of something. So I don't have an issue with that. I do have perhaps an issue when I work through some of it for people in my ward, and how it might work. But that's not what we're talking about today. But the other thing, there's a whole pile of these things now going out that we don't see. And previously, we've had, in just about every occasion, an opportunity to view it before it was sent out and make any comment. And maybe this one is, again, one that could have stopped this discussion now if it had come out earlier. If it had just been sent out, this is what we have decided to forward as a submission. Any further comments just would be helpful.
Okay, we, as I said, we did workshop this. We invited further comments, but at some point you've just got to say this is the views we've received and this is how we've incorporated them, rather than go round in circles re-workshopping it again, because there simply isn't the time in these situations. I've had a number of situations just recently where I've had to receive a submission and go through it the same day, and it's been tough, I can tell you. So that's just sometimes how it works. But I'll look for a move. So with that question, we're out of questions now. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder. Councillor Crawford, maybe. Councillor Granger, second. I'll put them. Any debate? Councillor Joyce.
I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this approach. I understand the pressures of time, and I also like ideas. But frankly, what's here on number 5 is basically nationalisation of people's land without compensation, right? You're talking about turning people's land from freehold to leasehold with no compensation. Now that's trampling on property rights. And I appreciate it's an idea, but it's an idea that needed to be properly considered before it went out on council letterhead. This is a council submission. If you wanted to put a private submission in as yourself, as the mayor, absolutely no problem with it, but this is going out from us. Who's going to tell the people of Waihi Beach and Makatu and Te Puna and Pukahina that we support a government actually taking their land off them, their freehold title off them, and replacing it with leasehold? You know, that's actually quite a radical idea. And it's one that should not be tossed off lightly. You know, that's what Venezuela does. That's what Cuba does. Take away people's land rights without compensation. The idea that the values would sink slowly over the 99 years is speculation. I mean, once you've declared land to be lost, the value will actually drop reasonably quickly, potentially. But certainly we should have some evidence one way or the other before we start suggesting it to government. We have a problem. These submissions are workshopped, but the information that goes into the final version is quite often quite different to what we workshop. I realise there's issues of time, but we have electronic means of communication. If you're asking councillors to submit ideas by email, then I can't see why the mayor should have different rules.
Because I have delegated authority. That is the reason why.
And perhaps we need to remove the delegated authority. Because frankly, this is saying to people in Waihi Beach, the government should take your freehold title away. This is saying to people in Makatu, the government should take your freehold title away. You give an example of London with no details. I'm told, and I don't know if it's true because I haven't had time to check, that the land in London was actually wasteland that they did this to. We've got many, many examples of leasehold land in New Zealand. The Cornwall Park Trust Board has famously, caused pain and suffering to people in Auckland from leasehold land. We've had the issues in Taranaki, where I'm from, where leasehold land has been mishandled, and the tangata whenua suffered from that. I really like ideas, and this is a big issue, and I don't have an answer, and no one does. But we just need to be sure that we're not, by accident, suggesting that our people, particularly in Waihi Beach and Makatu, should just have their freehold title, convert it to leasehold, and that would be a massive loss in value for people. That's a big question that should be discussed properly before a submission goes in. So I'm sorry, I cannot support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. I have Councillor Coxhead, please.
I think I've made it reasonably clear that I have huge concerns about the report produced by the Working Party. I've made no secret of that. I actually have 3 pages of notes subsequent to this, and I appreciate there's an awful lot of work gone into this. I'll focus my response to part 5 regarding the lease as well. This is an area I have reasonable experience in, freehold versus leasehold, and I would have been happy to have had input into this. The problem with this, I agree with what Councillor Joyce has had to say about compulsory acquisition with actually no compensation, actually a peppercorn lease in exchange. Effectively, by doing that, it is actually reducing the value of the land to pretty much zero because it's a compulsory situation. In a normal situation with a normal freehold and a normal, if you compared 2 properties exactly the same, one's leasehold, one's freehold, you would probably find that the leasehold was 50% land value of the freehold for the very reason of it being a lease, and that's a normal lease. Now, there's a point made in here about how the bank would still lend money on it and would lend it for 50 years. Well, that's again on a normal lease. The bank would lend money to the last 30 years of the term of the lease on a normal lease. Well, they would only lend 25 years, sorry, not 30. However, in this situation, it talks about, so let's use an example. So you've got $1 million property, let's say at the beach, and suddenly it's decided it's going to be mandatorily acquired by the council or whoever, and you have an $800,000 mortgage on that property. Now, suddenly your property value has reduced to, let's say, best part, probably the value of the house itself, not the land. The land would have no value at that point, presumably. So then you have an $800,000 mortgage you're paying for a property that may be worth maybe $250,000 just because of the house. And that may be okay with the bank as long as that loan didn't default. However, if it did default, suddenly the bank's got a property that they have to move a house off, the land's worth nothing, no one's going to buy it in a mortgagee sales situation. So it's essentially the security has been reduced to zero. There is no way of recouping that loss from the bank. And the point that's missed in here is the fact that the bank would never agree to the property being leasehold anyway, because at the end of the day, with a mortgage, the bank owns the property with you. So these are the points I'm concerned about. To Councillor Granger's point, it's just a submission, and what's the problem? Well, for me, it's on behalf of the council of which I'm an elected member, and I have more feedback to give on this, and I will be providing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coxhead. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, and reflecting on this, the issue is around wellbeing and safety that this managed retreat is about. In my view, we're trading certain misery by increased cost of owning land, increased cost to everyone, increasing the cost of living. That is near certain that will be the outcome of that. We're trading that against an uncertain future where we don't know what those costs will be. So I would prefer to be in the camp of dealing with certainty rather than uncertainty, and let market forces play its way up. So I'm not happy with this submission, so I would prefer my name's not attached to it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Murray-Bench.
I often talk about the cost of housing, but the number one issue with it is the cost of the land. And so following on from Councillor Coxhead, the house has got limited value, but the land is really expensive in this area. So it's a serious issue that nobody is going to agree with in the community. And they don't look 100 years ahead. They look at 10 years at the most. And for all those young people who want to own a home, then they haven't got a hope in hell unless of actually doing something, unless we change a lot of systems in this country. So, but listening to the debate, sir, one of the things that I think is really important, that before any submission goes to Wellington under your name, that it's circulated to councillors by email 2 days before it goes, so you've got a chance to actually have an opinion and finalise the submission with the confidence of all your councillors. That's really quite important, because it's not fair to you to have you in a position where in fact the councillors are feeling that they've got something to say and nowhere to say it except to you. So it puts us, everybody, in a very difficult position. So I feel for the council itself. My advice is we have a further recommendation that in the future all submissions be circulated to councillors before they actually go to Wellington, before you get the final sign-off. In fairness to you, we've got to protect you as well as the council itself, and I think that's really important that we do that.
I'll just comment on that. I don't think that is, I mean, one could physically circulate it before it goes to Wellington, but there's no facility to be able to incorporate those comments. That is the problem. So what would happen is that it would get circulated to councillors, maybe hours, maybe a day before it goes to Wellington. You'd barely have time to read it. Then it has to go through the work of collating, and you certainly wouldn't, you know, what if you said you wanted something and you wanted something else? You can't resolve that. And that is my role as mayor, as leader of this council, to make that call. And, you know, I get that you're not always happy with that, and these processes are not always ideal. But mostly, and with this submission in particular, we workshopped it and we asked for your opinions, and we received them and we incorporated them as much as we could. But with that, I'm going to go to actually Councillor Sol. Sol was next.
Yes, well, it was workshop, but in particular, the basic principle in 5 there wasn't, and that's really the case, and it's quite radical. May have great benefits, but what I see of it so far, and when I analysed it, it is not a benefit to us. I don't like the idea that our council is attached to such an idea without being able to workshop it, understand its implications, and I just feel that was quite dangerous in many ways. It's just something I'm not comfortable with at all. The rest of it, sure, we basically had a workshop, but that was something from out of blue sky somewhere, and that isn't so comfortable for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Perhaps I should just explain where this where I'm going with this, because there's a few misconceptions that have come up. So I would like to say, first of all, I did get the comfort from the majority of councillors about this idea. So I did explain it. It wasn't ideal. There were timing issues, obviously, but I did get the majority of councillors saying, we're happy with this. To the actual point, though, climate change is tough. There are no good solutions, or you can't win all round on this one. Managed retreat is confiscation of land, and it won't be without full compensation. This was a way of making it a more equitable outcome with certainty, long-term certainty. It is also, as Murray said, just an idea. It is a suggestion to government. This is not something we're going to implement on our own without consultation. This is, as Murray said, it's probably going in the bin. But I think it's an idea that I've been mulling over for some time, actually, and it just wasn't appropriate in the workshop to just spell it all out. That's not how the workshop was going. But I think this is a fair way of doing it, where the point with managed retreat is we've got to turn valuable houses on the coast to houses with zero value. And how do you do that, and when, and who pays? And this one, for me, felt like a fair way of doing it with long-term certainty. So I hope you appreciate it's just an idea, but I'll let Murray speak now.
Thank you. Yes, this is a submission to an inquiry. It's not a submission on a bill. It isn't a government idea. It's a submission into an inquiry on climate adaptation. And some of their ideas and that came out in their paper were pretty horrendous. With people with a batch get zero. Well, that's hardly a good idea. So float other ideas. It's another idea. And if somebody in Wellington thought it had merit, then I'm sure there's a heck of a lot of smarter minds than ours down there who work out all the wrinkles with mortgages and banks and all the other things that if they thought it had merit and thought it had legs and could run. So I don't know that we need to get so frustrated about the fact that the mayor popped in another thought at the last minute without talking to everybody about it. It's just an idea that's going to Wellington with a whole bunch of other ideas from other councils and private people. It's going to go into a big grinder and something will get spat out the end. And what that is, we have no idea. But this is a submission from us with, hey, what about thinking about this? Does it work? Can it fly?
Thank you. Would you like your right to reply, Councillor Crawford? Yep.
Yeah, look, I know it's a very difficult subject and appreciate what those are saying in regards to the homeowners, but it's a reality that we have to face. And man, I think, I've been thinking about this about people I know who own properties, very expensive properties, and what the implications will be like for them in the future. If we, maybe not in our lifetime, but, preparing for the future, about, that they could be facing where they're on their own. So to actually have an idea like this, is, I see it more of a positive idea than a negative, and the thing about equity and about who gets the right amount, that's another conversation to be worked out if it gets adopted. But yeah, just want to back you, James, and recognise sometimes the position you're put into. Yeah, that's what I want to say to that.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. So I shall now put the motion, which is, sorry? You want a division on receiving the report? Okay. Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Okay. Okay. Well, okay, yeah, we can do that. So okay. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Unfortunately not. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, can you just get them up?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, you got it. And those against, please raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that all right?
Yeah, because we've got 10 because Anne's away.
Okay. Oh, I love casting votes. Yeah, no, I will be voting in favour, but for goodness sake, this is receiving a report. I understand the issues here, but this is receiving a report and noting we've sent it basically, so vote in favour, carried. Thank you.
Can I ask what the protocol would be if the vote went against it and you can't receive a report?
Well, that's,
I would have moved a subsequent motion that we send a letter to the Ministry of Environment withdrawing our submission.
okay. Sounds like commissioner stuff to me, but anyway, okay. Item 10.6, page 213. Feedback managing the use and development of highly productive land, potential amendments to the MPS for highly productive land. Monique.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. The submission is also gone, so hopefully not too much controversy. Yeah, it's just in regards to highly productive land in the National Policy Statement, which has been in place for a year now. The submission relates to two issues brought forward by central government regarding consents. The first is in regards to allowing renewable energy infrastructure on highly productive land, and the second relates to forms of primary production. Take the submission as read, and I'm happy to take any questions in regards to it.
Any questions for Monique? Councillor Crawford.
Is there a point where it comes to where council obviously has got a land that doesn't grow, it's managing land that's existing, to where highly productive lands no longer can be built on? So TCC are sort of facing that, aren't they? So I guess it's what the strategy would be if once we reach that point.
So,
Oh, no, sorry. I don't know. It's a question about the use of highly productive land.
So the
Yeah.
policy statement has one objective, and that's to protect highly productive
Yeah,
land.
that's right.
Yeah.
I guess the question I was asking is, where do you go from there when you no longer can use highly productive land? You know, is there like in this direction, where do you go to? Does it, lead to high densification, high density, medium density?
Yeah, sure. So within the policy statement, there are exceptions to that, but in regards to the submission itself, it's looking at amendments that could allow for more exceptions, and whether, so that would be, say, renewable energy infrastructure or types of primary production such as greenhouses. So those are just the two issues that are asked in the submission. Yeah.
Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to add to what Monique has said, the submission points are reasonably narrow, as she has just mentioned, and essentially what the submission says is that we believe that both of that the consenting pathways for renewable infrastructure on highly productive land and for other primary production uses on highly productive land, the consenting pathways should be the same, essentially. That's at a very high level.
Yes, that both should be considered, yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Moat-Benge.
I support the submission, but we had the problems with Zespri coming in and telling us we've got highly productive land, but we want to house our workers when we're not able to. So there's a conflict there that I'm not sure that this actually addresses it. And there's issues where you've got a small piece of land and it's designated highly productive, but if it's used for another purpose, it could be even more highly productive and not necessarily for farming. So it's the conflict is there, and I just hope that common sense prevails and that we do have a degree of flexibility when the changes come.
Yes, there are a lot of issues such as that do come up in regards to highly productive land. I think that there is flexibility that has been the feedback from our regulatory team, that they're trying to work within the entire framework, not just within the national policy statement, this one policy statement, as there are quite a few, and the framework is quite large.
Councillor Coxhead.
This probably isn't a question. It's why would we want to use renewable energies to be placed on highly productive land anyway? Why can't it go on unproductive land? Unless I'm missing the point. The actual question I did have, when we talk about New Zealand aiming for being 100% reliable on renewable energy by 2030, are we including hydros in that? Hydro's included in that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to speak as to what, the strategy for renewable energy is, but the argument made for having particularly solar farms on highly productive land has to do with the availability of, or the more that highly productive land is in rural area, and you're more likely to have larger lots of land to allow for that. So that's sort of the point that's been brought forward, to have that type of infrastructure there.
I think it's also worth noting that the sort of flat land that you'd want to put a solar farm on would be often HPL anyway, rather than putting it in the hills, which is much more difficult to build and service. I mean, it's the same with housing. Well, the flat, nice land is where you want to do everything, right? So, yeah. Anyway, Councillor Coulter, you've spoken. Councillor Thwaites, there we are.
Just brief comment. I'm just slightly surprised we didn't make comment that we're proposing to build this council is proposing to build a city on the most productive kiwifruit land in the world. We stayed silent on that. So we're all for building on highly productive land. At Pine Grove, it's all orchards, mate. It's the best in the world.
Yeah. Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that Councillor Thwaites, the comment you make just highlights, and also Murray Benz, you make it too, that highlights the incredible tensions that exist in policy settings, most notably between the NPS for highly productive land and the NPS for urban development and the NPS for freshwater management. They all collide, and there is a need to find the sweet spot in amongst all of those policies, and it's not easy, but that is exactly the point that Councillor Thwaites is highlighting, the fact that the sub-region is experiencing an acute housing affordability and supply shortage, but at the same time must protect its incredibly valuable resource that is such a significant contributor to our sub-regional GDP. All points that are well made and noted. This is not easy navigating this space.
Yes. Okay, well, I think we need to round this out. So we'll look for a mover and seconder. Councillor Granger. Anyone else? Okay, I'll second it. Any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And with no more information for receipt, I'll close the meeting at 10:55. Thank you very much.